The scripture reading today is from John 11, 1 to 44, the New Revised Standard Version, updated edition. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill, so the sisters sent a message to Jesus. Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Accordingly, though, Jesus loved Martha and his sister and Lazarus. After having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you. Are you going there again? And Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them. After saying this, he told them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to awaken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be all right. Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought he was referring merely to sleep. When Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, for your sake, I am glad I was not there so that you may believe, but let us go to him. Thomas, who was called the Twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, the teacher is here and calling for you. And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were there with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, see how he loved him? But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days. And Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." May God bless the words to our understanding.
One of our communion hymns has as its third verse, "Weeping for his friend at graveside, Jesus felt the sting of death. Still he knew God's power to waken living water, living breath." The Lazarus story is one that many of us have heard many, many times. And we jump to the end. One of the problems with stories we hear a lot is we know where it's going to end. It makes it easy to slide over the uncomfortable parts in the middle. I think we do that with our Easter story, but that's for another day. This is a story that takes seriously death and loss and grief. It's also a story where I'm not sure Jesus comes out the best, because Jesus seems to be using this family in the depths of grief as a prop for this miracle. He's told, "Your friend Lazarus is ill." I'm not going to go yet. I'm going to wait around a bit. This is all for the glory of God anyway. He shows up, and this grieving sister, with whom he has relationship, comes up and says, "Why didn't you come sooner? If you'd been here, this wouldn't have happened." Not the best time to engage in a theological discussion about the nature of resurrection. One commentator I heard this week in a podcast suggests that when Martha goes to get Mary, it may be with an air of exasperation. It's like, "Fine, I'm not going to deal with you anymore. Mary, you come. You deal with him." But then Jesus asks, "Where is he?" And something changes. As Jesus is surrounded by these people in deep grief, people who have come from miles away, it's quite likely that even though Lazarus has been in the tomb for 4 days, they're still in that first week of grieving, of funeral rites, of wakes, of people gathering together. In modern Judaism, after death, close friends and family will gather in the house, they will cover all the mirrors, and they will sit Shiva. We're still in that week where everything's fresh, where the pain of grief is like a dagger to the heart. And Jesus begins to weep. In other translations, it's simply "Jesus wept," which, if you're a trivia person, and the trivia question is, what is the shortest verse in the Bible? It's John 11:35. Jesus wept. Now, I first learned that reading Laura Ingalls Wilder Little House books, but we learn things in strange places. But Jesus begins to weep. He's overcome, maybe by his own grief, because this is his friend's tomb. He's overcome by the grief of the people around him, and grief is something we share. When you gather with people who are grieving, it makes an impact on you. The reality of death is also the reality of grief and brokenness and despair. Now, Jesus knows what the plan is. Jesus has said before they started back to Bethany, let's go back there. Lazarus is asleep, but I'm going to go wake him up. And his disciples, being apparently quite literal people, say, well, if he's asleep, that's a good thing. Sleep helps you heal. This is why using euphemisms is not always a good idea. So Jesus eventually says, look, he's dead. Jesus knows that the plan is that this illness does not lead to death. But still he weeps. Still he feels the despair, the sting, the dagger, and he weeps. Then he goes to the tomb and says, well, open it up. And his sisters, being very practical people, he's been dead for 4 days. It's gonna stink. They know what happens to dead bodies. It's part of why in the ancient world often burial happened really quickly, especially in warm climates like Judea. Open it up. And we have the miracle, and Lazarus comes out, and Jesus says, unbind him, let him go, set him free. And 2,000 years later, we continue to tell the story. The story of life that conquers death. The story of hope that conquers despair. That comes into our grief and lifts us up. Now, in the lectionary, that story, the Lazarus story, is indeed paired with this story. Alas, poor Yorick, Hamlet might say. Because the Ezekiel story of the dry bones is also a story of God's power to bring despair that is conquered by hope, to bring life that conquers death. Ezekiel looks at a valley and it's a charnel house. These people weren't buried properly. Their bones weren't treated with respect. They're just bleached by the sun. Ezekiel is preaching this, seeing this vision in a time of exile, when the nation itself feels bleached by the sun, left to rot. Mortal, can these bones live? God asks Ezekiel. God, you yourself know. And we have the wind and the rattling bones, and they're put flesh on, and the wind fills their lungs. Them bones gonna walk around. We continue to tell these stories not just because they're part of our heritage of faith. We continue to tell these stories because we still hold on to the hope. We know the reality of death. We know that sharp pain of grief. Not just for our dearly beloved, but for our institutions. I just started this week reading a book called, cheerily enough, Life After Doom. I haven't got past the doom part yet. Life After Doom is written by Brian McLaren, dealing with the climate crisis. I hope to get to the life. Chapter 2 was not life, it was doom. Collapse of civilization. Yesterday, a group of us gathered together and talked about what the future hope for the United Church, both locally and nationally, might be. And in that presentation was there were a lot of charts because the church loves statistics. And the charts had very much that kind of an angle to them. We know the reality of death. We fear the reality of death. We know that things aren't what they once were. We know that the way we've been living isn't going to work anymore. And that brings despair, that brings grief, that brings anxiety. Mortal, can these bones live? Our hope is in the God who can take utter destruction, a valley full of bleached bones, a tomb where a man has been lying for 4 days, where there's no hope left. The die has been cast. And suddenly there's life. There's hope. There's possibility. We follow the one who tells us that life wins. If we look at the world and it looks like life and love have completely lost, that there's no hope left, sort of, opening up your news feed and finding out about the latest bombing run in Iran, or the retaliations in Israel, or the expansion into Lebanon, or opening up and hearing about the latest set of laws which are designed to lift up the powerful at the expense of those on the margins. If life and love haven't won yet, it's not the end yet. In the end, we are promised life and love will win. Through death and grief, we travel. We know the realities. We know the despair. But the wind of God has yet to blow, to rattle the bones, to make something new out of what was. Life will yet win. Thanks be to God. Amen.